Hi, welcome everybody. This is Jeff Greenwald with The Mental Edge. I'm here with Lisa Stone today. Excited to have Lisa with us. Lisa is a creator of Parenting Aces, a website and radio show geared toward the parents of junior tennis players. And in the 3.5 years since starting Parenting Aces, she's met and interviewed fellow tennis parents, coaches, professional coaches, fitness and nutrition, just a host of people who've, she's really creating a huge library, a resource for folks on various aspects of the game. And her goal is to help educate parents and coaches as they navigate these waters of junior tennis, which she's now finishing with her son, who's 18 and completing the junior tennis circuit, and going to college. So we're happy to have Lisa here with us. And Lisa, are you there?
I am here. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Great. Well, excited to hear, about your experience as a mom. I mean, mom of a tennis playing kid and all that you've learned. You've been doing this for 3 years. You have your own radio show, and maybe tell folks a little bit about your show and what you've been up to in these 3 years, and give people a sense of that.
Wow, that's a loaded question. It's been an incredible ride so far. I kind of jumped into this whole thing of creating a website and a radio show for parents, mainly because I couldn't get answers to my questions as a parent myself, and trying to help my son kind of go through his own junior tennis development. I found that for the most part, junior coaches may be really good at teaching tennis itself, but they don't always keep up to date on how to navigate the tournament structure and when it's time to start playing up, or how you sign up for ITF tournaments, or when it's time to start playing men's opens, for example. And so I would ask these questions of my son's coach, and then when he would kind of look at me like, I don't know, I would reach out to USTA, to my section, and wasn't really getting the answers that I was seeking through USTA either, and actually found a group on Facebook. And I know this sounds so kind of hokey, but I connected with this group of folks on Facebook, and they had all been top juniors in their younger years, and were now either still involved in the game as coaches, or had kids of their own who were playing, or they really weren't involved in the game at all anymore, but just kind of wanted to reminisce about their experiences. And they welcomed me with open arms, and I started asking all my questions there, and started getting some really, really good answers from these different people. And finally, one of them suggested that I compile all of this information into a website for other parents, and so that's what I did. And I've just, I've amassed some incredible information through interviewing experts in the field, just through going through the process myself, and recognizing the mistakes that I've made along the way, and I've tried to be very candid on Parenting Aces about the things I've done wrong, and what I would suggest to parents coming up behind me so that they can do it better. And it's been an incredible experience. I've met some unbelievable people, you included, through my connection with Parenting Aces, and I've had the opportunity to attend some amazing events, tournaments, conferences, just because I'm a tennis mom who is trying to share the information.
That's great. What are some of those questions that you were really trying to get answered, and maybe some of the questions you saw other mothers, other parents struggling with? Obviously, the logistics, as you said, with the tournaments and where to play and when to play up. But what about the pressure and the week in and week out striving to be better, to be ranked higher, to get into college, and just over the years, what have some of those questions been for you that you've really been on a path to get some answers to?
I think one of the hardest things is, besides the, like you said, the logistics of how the tournament structure works and how the ranking structure works, because that's confusing in and of itself, and I'm still not sure I understand it 100%. My son's getting ready to play our state qualifier for our sectional closed tournament, and he's not seeded in the tournament because he hasn't been playing tournaments the last few months, and so his ranking dropped. And for somebody that's going off to play Division I tennis in the fall, not to be seated in your state qualifier, it's just kind of a bizarre thing. So I still don't really understand how that all works. I mean, I do, but it's crazy. But I think it's like you said, it's more how to watch your child on the court, and how to talk to your child when they come off the court, and when you're in the middle of a tournament weekend, what should you be doing at night to prepare for the next day of the tournament, and what is the role of the parent in all of this, and at what age does the parent need to start backing off and letting the child assume more responsibility? And I've written about the times where I've sent my son to tournament by himself, where he's gotten in his car and driven the 4 hours, for the weekend, and stayed in a hotel, and I haven't been there. And these are all the things that I've had to kind of deal with. What happens when your kid gets injured and you're not there? How do you manage that? So it's hard to narrow down, and I just think there's so many issues that come up through this process, and to me, it all speaks to why tennis is such an amazing sport, because the lessons that our kids learn and the lessons that we parents learn, these are lessons that are life lessons. They don't just apply to tennis. They don't just apply to the sport. They apply to how you conduct yourself as a human being out in the world. And I think recognizing that and having that reinforced time and again as we've gone through this process has just been really cool.
Yeah, it's really an interesting challenge, and the show that I'm doing here is really around raising and training resilient athletes, and of course tennis is close to my heart too. And I think there's so much we can learn as parents and coaches and people in the field to help these young kids grow up, learn these life lessons, like you said, and develop that resiliency. But it's so tough, isn't it, when your son or daughter's on the court and they're out there not playing as well as they could. They may be nervous. They may be just really frustrated. But as a parent, what have you come across in terms of sort of a consensus, or your feeling personally of how to deal with those times where you may want to coach your child in between sets or tell them what they did or didn't do right in the match? How did you navigate those difficult moments in finding your role as a parent?
I screwed up a lot, a real lot. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've screwed up more times than I can count, and said the wrong thing, reacted the wrong way. My body language was, 100% wrong more times than I can count. I've walked away from matches where I've, seen stuff on the court and I just couldn't sit there and take it. I mean, just bad. Yeah. And it's still really hard for me. I am a type A personality. I am super intense emotionally, and so it's very difficult for me to do and I'm using air quotes here, do the right thing when I'm sitting courtside. I have learned, and I think my son will tell you I've gotten better, still not perfect, but I've gotten better. I have learned to ask the question, do you want to hear what I saw? Are you interested in hearing that? And then respecting his answer. Because I went through a period.
Great. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I went through a period where I would just start spewing after a match. And then I progressed, and I would ask the question that I just said, But then I would start spewing anyway, even when he told me he didn't want to hear it. I would say, but let me just tell you this.
I know.
And then now I've finally gotten to the point where if he says, later, Mom, then I zip it. And I am clenching my teeth, I'm biting my tongue, I'm sitting on my hands, but I have learned to keep my mouth shut. And that was, we've been doing this over 10 years. I'm a work in progress, just like my kid is. And I think that the parents that are listening, we have to cut ourselves some slack here. We cannot be expected to be perfect all the time. There are going to be days where our kid goes out there and either doesn't play up to what we consider their potential, or they behave poorly, and they're human, and they're kids, and they're learning. And so I think one of the things that really helped me was watching a lot of pro tennis and seeing the pros miss the same easy shot that I would get on my kid about missing. And think, how can I expect a 12-year-old to make that ball every time when Rafa Nadal misses that ball? Like, that's ridiculous. Why would I expect that? That's just dumb. I need to let that go. Of course he's going to miss.
Yeah.
So,
well, I can really empathize, Lisa. No, I can really empathize with, as a parent, in what it's like to see your child not playing well, maybe, or just not. More importantly, not giving effort, which is, I think, for parents even more frustrating, difficult. But for example, like watching my daughter play soccer, and all the parents on the sideline, yelling at their kids running down the field unknowingly, where the kids are now distracted looking over at the parents. They're trying to focus on the ball, and now the parents are yelling instructions. Go for the ball, be aggressive, whatever, and yet they're unintentionally creating, distraction and, more, extrinsic motivation, so the kid's being really sort of dictated to, or, a victim of her parents. So anyway, that's something I've seen, and I'm just wondering, though, what it brings me to, I'm thinking about you in the car, and I appreciate your honesty, because it is really hard when you see this, and how to bite your tongue, as you said. So when you're in the car and you were telling them anyway, what's the fear? Because I think fear is at the crux of so many things. Fear, when he had this match, didn't play well, and you want to tell him this. What's the fear if you don't tell him, right away or whatever?
Well, for me, it's a couple things, and the first one you're going to laugh, but it's that I'll forget. My brain goes 90 miles a minute, and I think part of my challenge is making sure I filter things before they come out of my mouth. So I just, if I don't say it while I'm thinking about it, I'm afraid it's going to be gone. And so what I learned to do is to dictate notes into my phone. So I would have it there to refer back to later. And oftentimes, that's all I needed to do. Once I dictated the note, I didn't need to say it to him. I just needed to say it to somebody. And if I could say it to Siri on my iPhone, that was sufficient. I just needed to get it out. So that was a really helpful thing for me. But the other thing is trusting him to understand his sport well enough to recognize the things he did well and the things he didn't do well. And it took me a long time to get to the place where I had that trust in him. And it wasn't that he hadn't earned the trust, it wasn't that he had shown me that he couldn't do it. It's just I made an assumption based on his age. There's no way he's recognizing this stuff. If he recognized it, he'd fix it in the moment. It was that kind of thought process for me. And once I was able to get to the place where I said, you know what, he puts in way more hours on the tennis court than I ever have or ever will. Of course he knows what he did well and what he didn't do well. He's got good coaches. He doesn't need me to tell him that stuff. He knows. He already knows. And
well, you mentioned trust. Trusting, yes. But Lisa, trusting him, which is very important. But then I think, aren't you saying trusting the coaches too, that they're going to
yes.
be on top of whatever weakness is showing up?
And I think that's another facet of this, Jeff, is because for us here in Atlanta, it's tennis mecca here. There are a gajillion kids playing, and there's so many different coaches here. But there are very few coaches that actually go watch the kids compete in tournaments because our section's really big. It covers 9 states, and it's not possible for the coaches to always be at these tournaments. And so, my big thing, too, was, like you said, it was trusting the coach because I felt like, well, shoot, if the coach isn't there watching, how are they going to know what to work on, for the next training block before the next tournament? If I'm not telling them, and, I don't know if my kid's telling them that, if he's accurately assessing what's going on out there. I have no idea of, no way of knowing that. So you're right. I mean, that was a big piece of it.
Yeah, that's, and what's interesting when we're on this concept of trust, which is part of building up, resilient players, resilient athletes, is that we can think that, if we can tell them that they were pulling up on their backhand or they were being too aggressive at a certain point, and that these specific comments, feedback, will be more important than what sounds like you've been learning, is that giving them the gift of trust, that you can come off and not feel like you have to dive right into their grill and tell them what they did wrong or whatever, and give them that space. You're holding up something much more important, instilling something much more valuable over time than the specific, if they, by the way, even accept the tip you're giving them because of the state they're in. So it's kind of a lose-lose. So I love your idea of dictating into a phone, putting into notes, maybe even having an agreement with, parents, son or daughter, the agreement that they can send the text or email later. It doesn't even, and certainly not happen right after the match. But I love that, getting it out, because I think that is probably an anxiety that a lot of parents feel.
Right.
To get that out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was big. It was a big help for me. It's the same as like when the match tracking apps first started coming out. That was a great gift for me because I could sit there during a match and I was consumed 100% with tracking every ball. And so that kept me focused on something that may or may not be useful down the road. It didn't matter, but what it did was it kept me neutral. It gave me something to do, and I'm over 50, so the stuff doesn't come easy for me. I have to really concentrate when I'm doing stuff like that, and so it really helped my my whole mental state and my physical state when I was sitting courtside and tracking matches. Now I don't have to do that anymore, but for a while that was a saving grace for me.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think you need a way to stay engaged. Otherwise, you get swept into the moment and your emotions, etc., which are not helpful. Do you have any other examples of things that you did or other parents you saw maybe that did not do it well? You saw it right in front of you, you couldn't believe it, or maybe even by now you probably can, but it was just, it just made you think, oh my gosh, and I got to stop doing this or that. And so maybe an example of people that you've seen over the years not handling themselves well, and then maybe, any example of parents who really turned a corner and you really noticed a shift at all, or an acknowledgement that they're getting it and then could actually interact with their child in a different way. Did you, sign up kind of a success story example?
Well, the first question you asked about seeing somebody doing it not well. I have a really this happened. I want to say my son was in the 14s, and he was playing a match at the Southern Closed, which is our big sectional that the winner gets a spot in the National Hard Courts. So it's a big tournament, and he was playing this boy. He'd never played him before, and the kid was ranked well ahead of my son at the time. And I was sitting behind the end of the court. They were playing at a facility where there were banks of courts, and there was like a narrow walkway between the banks at the ends of the courts. So I was sitting on the ground at the end of the court, and the opponent's dad was sitting a little ways away from me, but also in that same general area. And every time the opponent would miss a ball, the dad would yell out, "That's 23 unforced errors. I don't know how you think you're going to win a match with 23 unforced errors." And then the next time, "That's 24 unforced errors." And this went on through the entire match. I mean, out loud, where I was, maybe 50 feet away from him, but was hearing it loud and clear. So certainly his kid was hearing him. And all I could think to myself was, please keep doing that, because my son's going to win this match, because you're going to drive your son insane. And 2, I feel really bad for your boy. That's all I kept thinking. And, sure enough, my son won the match, and, it was a big upset at the time because my son was ranked so much lower than this kid. But I just, as I sat there, my stomach started hurting. I started getting nauseous because it was just so upsetting. And, they were little boys out there. I mean, they were maybe 12, 13, 14. I don't remember what year this was, but I mean, they were children. And this dad was just humiliating his son publicly after every single miss. And it broke my heart. I was really happy when that match ended.
I'm sure. Let me ask you this: Did anybody, referee, tournament director, anybody say anything to the man?
No, and I almost did. And in fact, I may have said something at the end. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody came back and said, "Oh yeah, I was standing there. I heard you say something to him." I don't remember, but I just remember feeling just so sad for that little boy. And it turned out, this is interesting, the kid turned out to be one of those really obnoxious tennis kids that you hear about. Lots of gamesmanship, bad line calling, all kinds of stuff. And it's not surprising, given what he was facing when he walked off the court. Of course. It must have been awful for this kid to lose because of his dad. And the kid's quit. I mean, he has since quit. He doesn't play anymore. Also not surprising. But it was heartbreaking. And in terms of seeing somebody turn around, I can't really give you an example. I will say my son played a kid who had older siblings who had also played tennis. And sitting near those parents was really good for me to watch them, because they had already been through it. They knew that results in the 12s don't mean squat. Results in the 14s don't mean squat. Why are you getting so upset? They're 13 years old. Nobody cares about their results at 13. Nobody cares about that ranking. Just watch them play. Enjoy the fact that they're out there, that they're physically active, that they're healthy. Just get pleasure from that and don't worry about the outcome so much. And that was great for me to witness and kind of surround myself with. And it took a while for it to rub off on me, but I do feel like it has rubbed off over the years. And I've, now when I sit and watch 10s or 12s and, I see these parents going nutso, and I just laugh, and I'm like, this match means nothing in the, years of development that your child is going to have. Just enjoy how cute they are out there. And,
right.
But
right.
you can't say that to somebody in the moment. So.
I know. I wish we could, and I wish more people, would be accountable for some of that behavior and all that. But unfortunately not. And so, what I think what we're going to have to do, though, Lisa, here, unfortunately, maybe wrap up in a couple minutes, because it turns out that the power cord in my computer is not actually working. It looks like it might have burned out, because I've about 9% left on my laptop, and I think this. I have a feeling that the show will end. Is that right?
Probably. If your laptop dies and you're not connected, yeah probably.
So we'll kind of wrap and keep it a short one. But
okay.
I had another thought about just helping these parents really become more knowledgeable of the impact. I think a lot of times we don't recognize the impact. We're so caught in our own thoughts and what we need to do, and it's very hard for us to hold the long-term vision as it is for our kids out there competing and trying to get the W, trying to win the match or win their game. And so I think the fact that you see the need, you've seen the need for a resource for parents, because parents are struggling with, what do I do with, I'm spending all this money, and then my kid goes out, melts down, and they don't know what to do. And I'm sure you see that every tournament where players are just melting down, and just people don't know what to do with that. Yeah.
Well, and I want to offer up to anybody listening, I am always here. If you want to call and complain about how terrible your kid performed out there, I'm happy to listen to that, because I get it. And I mean, one of the first articles I ever wrote on Parenting Aces was, what about me? And what about how I feel when my kid goes out there and doesn't give their all? Aren't I entitled to feel disappointed? And the answer is yes. I mean, the answer is yes. It's an investment of time and money and resources, and there is a level of expectation with our children about giving 100% effort, as you said. And so I would just say to any of your listeners, reach out to me. My phone number's on my website, my email address. You can reach me on Facebook, Twitter. I'm all over the place, and I'm more than happy to be an ear if you need one. And it will stay between us, I promise.
That's great. And I have an idea too that I'll share with you that perhaps could be helpful to parents, of sort of creating a forum as well. And but we can talk more about that idea, because I think a lot of times parents just don't have the information, and it is so important. The impact is really so critical for the kids' development over time. And Lisa, thank you. I know you bring a lot to the table with all of your experience as a mom and having a kid get, congratulations on getting him through junior tennis. That is an accomplishment in and of itself. Yeah, I
agree.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
You
deserve a glass of wine and celebrate that for sure. And I too am available for folks, and we could continue to help as much as you need. Thank you, 720 Degrees Coaching. Mental Edge, Jeff Greenwald here with Lisa Stone. Lisa, again, thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you, and hopefully we can do it again.
Thanks, Jeff. Anytime.
Okay, take good care. Bye.
You too. Bye.